In order to understand communal politics, we need to understand that in India, with the coming of British, a new social political system started developing. We all know that British came to India to plunder and loot, and they did trade also. They came to rule this country also. Now, in order to achieve their purpose of plunder of raw materials, of sale of their finished goods, they started the means of transport, they started the means of communication, they started modern administration. Now, in pursuance of this, they also introduced modern education, though it was in a highly distorted form. Now, these changes which were taking place at economical industrial level, they resulted in the rise of three new classes. Now, these three new classes which came up because of the changes brought in by British, I will put them in group A. And at the same time, the old classes associated with kings, means Raja, Nawab, Zamindar, Jagirdar, and the people associated with them, I will put them in group B. The people of group B started feeling a bit threatened by the social changes. They felt that these changes are empowering people who were earlier not in the arena of power. So from group A, we will call them as rising classes. Group B, we will call as declining classes who have not yet declined. In group A, if we see, the people who came up were: one, industrialist businessmen; second, the workers; and third, the modern educated classes. Now, these were the people coming from group A. In the group B, I have already told you who were the people. Now, from group A, there started occurring the formation of many associations. Please note that in kingdoms, in earlier times, there were no associations of professionals. It is after the emergence of these new classes that associations started forming, and these associations started articulating their needs, their political needs, which culminated in the formation of Indian National Congress in 1885. As Indian National Congress was formed, put forward the demand to the British government that you must fulfill some of the needs of the rising classes. What are these demands? They said, our industrialists need more infrastructure and development. They said that our workers who are tied to the land as slaves, they need to be released from the land slavery. And third, our educated classes who are just becoming clerks, they need to be given place as officers. And for achieving these, what should be done? More infrastructure, more land reforms, and thirdly, starting off the ICS examination centers in Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta and Madras. So these were the demands put forward by the Indian National Congress as a representative of the associations emerging from group A. As this was formed, the Rajas and Nawabs, they started feeling alerted. They felt, oh, what is happening? Some other people who are not having divine power, they are coming into the political arena. So they said that formation of Congress is against our religion. How does one understand this? Because as per them, our religious institutions tell us that we must obey our king. If we don't obey our king, we will be sent to hell, Jahannam or Narak. This is what was being propagated by the clergy associated with these Rajas and Nawabs. So they felt formation of Indian National Congress is against our religion, and in this Hindu Rajas and Muslim Nawabs, Hindu Jamindars and Muslim Jagirdars, they were all unanimous. They all came together to form an organization called as United India Patriotic Association. Now, their patriotism word was not for this country. The meaning of their patriotism was that we are subjects of the British Crown, so we should remain loyal to the British Queen. Interestingly, it is from United India Patriotic Association that later on one side came Muslim League and on the other side came Hindu Mahasabha. Before I go into that, I must explain that British were very keen to follow the policy of divide and rule, especially after the 1857 uprising, when Hindus and Muslims, kings and soldiers and average peasants, they came together against the British rule, against the rule of East India Company. The British got alerted and they said that if Hindus and Muslims, they remain united, in that case it will be difficult for them to perpetuate their rule here. So they adopted the policies which the old empires were using. What were these policies? These policies were to divide and rule, and British authorities employed all their mechanisms to ensure that Hindus and Muslims, especially their landlord and Raja elements, they are divided on the grounds of religion in times to come. Now, if we want to understand this further, I must say Group A, because it was a rising class, because it was a modern class, it believed in the values which were the values of freedom movement. It were the values which later on got enshrined in Indian Constitution. What are these three values? These values are liberty, equality and fraternity. If we want to understand the birth-based hierarchy, the best example is to see the relationship between king and the ordinary Dalit or ordinary subject. You can very well imagine that when in the king's court an ordinary person was going, he was generally bending himself, he was doing number of salutations to the king. And while returning from the king's court, he had always to come back in the reverse gear with his feet backwards without showing his back to the king. Why it was so? Because it was regarded that king is directly the son of God, and we, the average Tom, Dicks and Harry, we are the son of ordinary people. So this is the basic inequality which got reflected in the social systems. Now in Indian society, in Hindu society, this was best described by Dr. Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar says that Indian society is like a four-storied building. In these four stories are Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Some people say that this building is very strong, very nice, very beautiful. But friends, he also points out that in the same building there is no internal staircase. So in whichever floor you are born, that is your final destiny. The same thing was applied to the Muslim community also. In Muslim community, this got reflected in the form of Ashraf, Ajlaf and Arzal. Similar thing must have been prevalent in European society in the name of Christianity. Please remember, when the king is trying to impose a political inequality, its justification comes from the clergy. Clergy, irrespective of its religion, somewhere it is called Pope, somewhere it is Maulana, somewhere it is Brahmin. Most of them, they create a social ideology where the birth-based inequality becomes the part of social thinking, becomes the part of social norms which cannot be violated during those times. Now, with the change in situations of industrialization and education, these values started breaking down. But in country like India, unfortunately, they did not totally break. And even this break was very, very slow. This break had to be pushed by reformers like Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Dr. Ambedkar himself, at places Periyar and so many Dalit workers scattered all over the country. They led the people toward social equality. Here, another point which is common to Dalits and women both, that is about education. I hope you know that earlier education was barred from the lower caste. So in this context, when the education was to be taken to the lower caste at one point, the British education system was open to all. But the low caste, Dalits, they were scared of going to schools because there was a social inhibition. There was a social lack of sanction for the same. When Dalits started taking to education, there was a lot of resistance from people belonging to ideology of Group B. They tried to create lot of obstacles for education of Dalits. And when their obstacles failed, they spread a rumor. Rumors have a lot of power. So to stop the education for Dalits, rumor was started that look, what a dark age, what Kali has come, the goddess of knowledge, Saraswati is going to the house of Shudras. Oh, so what bad times have come. Friends, I want to pose to you a question. What was Satyug? Satyug was a time when education was barred for women and Shudras. What is Kali? Kali is a time when education is available, potentially available. There is a possibility of Dalit and women both taking to modern education. Which yug you will prefer, Satyug or Kali? That question I am leaving to you for your own judgment. So this was education for Dalits. The second thing, this hierarchy which was prevalent in most of the communities in India was very firm, very rigid, and with the efforts like this started cracking slightly. In the case of women, the things were much more difficult because during 19th century, earlier part of 19th century and earlier also, it was regarded that if women touch even a piece of paper, that is a sin because of which they will be going to hell or Narak or Jahannam. This was barred for them. So here people like Savitribai Phule and other social reformers, they encouraged the women to come for modern education. And when they started coming for modern education, when Savitribai ji started school for girls, girls started going to school, but this was also a very painful period. This was very a painful process in which the people belonging to Group B ideology, they tried to stop it by attacking those people who started schools for girls. For example, mud and other type of dirty things were thrown on Savitribai Phule when she was going to the school. When all their efforts failed to stop the education for women, they again started another rumor. What was this rumor? This rumor was much more interesting. The rumor was that if women take to modern education, they will become widows very early. Now you know, widowhood had so much pain and problems, and that's why the film by Deepa Mehta, Water, was not permitted to be made by those people today also belonging to ideology of Group B. But here at Lighter Vein I tell you that this is totally false and bogus. Women becoming widows because they take modern education had no meaning. Now this process of social transformation of caste and gender was an integral part of the national movement. We can say national movement had three components. One, to fight against the British power. Second, to combine the people to make a national community around these values. And third was to fight for equality of caste and gender. Here one must remember the immense contributions of Dr. Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar, who led the Dalits to get the social equality. In this direction, he launched many movements. One of his major movements was Mahad Chaudhar Talab movement. What was this movement? This movement was for Dalits' rights to get access to public drinking water. Interestingly, when Dalits went to drink the water in the lake of Mahad, on the other side there were cattle which were drinking water, no problem. But when Dalits started drinking that water, they were attacked by the upper caste and they were attacked by those people who were opposed to this social transformation. After this, Dr. Ambedkar said, "You regard us as Hindus? Then why don't you permit us to enter the temples?" and that's why the movement of Kalaram temple entry began. And in Kalaram also, when they wanted to enter the temple was locked from outside and inside both. And there were people standing with batons to beat the people who will try to enter the battle. Seeing these two things, Dr. Ambedkar went for a third major thing, and that was burning of Manusmriti. Dr. Ambedkar realized that the social systems, the social norms, they are emerging from Manusmriti. And while burning the Manusmriti, he said, I am burning this book because this book has the laws which give slavery to women and Shudras both, and I am not going to accept slavery of any person in the society in the current times. That was the story of the social reform movement which took place in India. Now, as far as struggle against the British was concerned, all the people from Group A, Bhagat Singh, Gandhi, Ambedkar contributed in their own way. And it is because of their efforts that we got independence from the slavery of British. What is noteworthy is that people belonging from Group B neither took part in the freedom movement, neither they endorsed the freedom movement, nor they took part in any of the agitations which were meant to be against the British. You can see the details of this. The people belonging from Group B many times even criticized Gandhi very heavily for his Quit India movement and other things. At the same time, they told their followers, don't go on that path of going against British. This is not going to give us anything. In a way, they were right. Because the whole national movement was meant for secular democracy, and people belonging to Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, RSS, they had nothing to do with secular democracy. Muslim League was looking for a Muslim nation. Hindu Mahasabha, RSS were looking for a Hindu nation. So why those poor fellows should have participated in the freedom movement? It is wrong on our part to criticize them that they did not participate in the freedom movement. Freedom movement was none of their business. Fine, let's accept that. The problem is the other way around, that the same people who did not contribute anything to the formation of the nation, the same people who did not participate in the freedom movement, today they are trying to pose themselves as the biggest patriot. Nothing can be more paradoxical in the political arena which is going on in today's times. Now, as the freedom movement went on going, its biggest contribution was that people belonging to all religions, people belonging to all regions, and men and women both, they started identifying with each other as Indians, and Indian identity started surpassing the other regional and religious identity. This Indian identity has not come out of nowhere. It has been built with lot of difficulty, and the difficulty was all the travels and labors of Dandi March, of all the travels and labors of non-cooperation movement, Quit India movement, which were heavily repressed by the British authorities. Now this freedom movement, unfortunately, was not liked by either people of Group B, and the British were heavily against the national movement. They were also very clear that if the India remains united, this will become a very big power center in the South Asia. So they were also pursuing the policy of divide and rule. It is this policy of divide and rule because of which Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha and RSS, they were not the subject of repression by the British authorities. They subtly encouraged the actions of these particular political formations in their own way, and these political formations served the British interest in a very subtle way.